My name is Jake, and I used to think I had it all figured out. I had a good job, a nice apartment, friends, and a family that was always there for me. But like so many people, I didn't realize how fragile everything was until it was all taken away. It all started with my career. I had climbed the corporate ladder for years, building what I thought was the foundation for my success. I worked tirelessly, often at the expense of my health, my relationships, and my happiness. I was living the dream, at least that's what I told myself. I believed that as long as I worked harder than anyone else, I would eventually achieve everything I wanted. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. One fateful day, I walked into the office to find out that my position had been eliminated. It wasn't just my job that disappeared in an instant. It felt like the ground beneath me had crumbled, leaving me to free fall into uncertainty. I'd been laid off before, but this time it was different. This wasn't just about losing a paycheck. This was about losing my identity. Who was I without the title I had worked so hard to earn? Without the career that defined me, I felt like a nobody. I spiraled into a deep depression, questioning everything I had done in my life. The relentless pursuit of success had left me empty, and now, with nothing to show for it, I was facing the terrifying question: what's next? But as much as I wanted to wallow in self-pity, I knew deep down that I had a choice. I could either stay stuck in this feeling of loss, or I could pick myself up and figure out what I truly wanted. The problem was, I had no idea where to start. I'd spent so much time chasing the next promotion, the next big paycheck, the next accomplishment, that I had forgotten to ask myself why I was doing all of it in the first place. As I sat in the silence of my apartment one evening, it hit me. I had been chasing someone else's version of success. I had been living for the approval of others, my boss, my peers, my family. But now that it was all gone, I realized that none of it had ever brought me true happiness. I had been so busy running toward the future that I hadn't stopped to ask myself what I truly wanted. That moment of clarity was painful. It was a wake-up call, a slap in the face that forced me to confront my own fears and insecurities. But it was also the beginning of something new. I had lost everything, but in the process, I had gained something invaluable: the space to rediscover myself. I spent the next few months reflecting on my life and what truly mattered to me. I started reading books, listening to podcasts, and engaging in conversations that challenged my perspective. I began exploring ideas and passions that had been buried under the weight of my old identity. I asked myself hard questions. What was I truly passionate about? What did I want my life to stand for? At first, it was terrifying. I had no clear answers, and the uncertainty made me feel vulnerable. But I kept going. I started to embrace the discomfort and the unknown, and with each day, I got closer to understanding who I was beneath all the labels and achievements. Then, an opportunity came that I never saw coming. One of my old friends reached out to me with an idea for a business. He had been working on a project that aligned with some of the values I had rediscovered in myself. It wasn't glamorous or lucrative right away, but it felt meaningful. For the first time in years, I felt excited about something. This wasn't just a job. It was a chance to create something that mattered, to use my skills and passions in a way that felt authentic. It wasn't easy. Building a business from the ground up is never easy, especially when you have no safety net and no guarantee of success. But for the first time, I wasn't doing it for the paycheck. I was doing it because it felt right. I was doing it for a purpose that was bigger than myself. And as the business began to grow, I realized something incredible. Losing everything had led me to the one thing I had been searching for all along: my true purpose. The loss of my job had shaken me to the core, but it also opened the door to a life that was more fulfilling and meaningful than I could have ever imagined. I didn't have the same material possessions I once did, but I had something more valuable: peace. I had learned the hard way that true happiness doesn't come from external accomplishments or the approval of others. It comes from within. It comes from living a life that is aligned with your values, your passions, and your purpose. Looking back, I realized that losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to confront the parts of myself I had been ignoring and gave me the chance to build a life that was more authentic and true to who I really am. Now I wake up every day with a sense of purpose. I'm not chasing after the next big promotion or the approval of others. I'm living for myself, for the people I care about, and for the work that brings me joy. And I know that no matter what happens, I have everything I need inside of me to keep going. The lesson here is simple. Sometimes you need to lose everything to find yourself. You need to hit rock bottom in order to rise up stronger than you ever thought possible. Life will always throw obstacles in your path, but it's how you respond to those challenges that defines you. If you're feeling lost or stuck right now, know that you're not alone. We all go through periods of uncertainty, but those moments of struggle can be the most transformative. Don't be afraid to lose everything, because it might just be the push you need to find your true purpose. I'll admit, there were days when I questioned whether the struggle was worth it. The business didn't take off overnight, and I found myself battling doubt more often than I'd like to admit. There were moments when I thought I'd made a huge mistake, times when I wanted to go back to the comfort of my old job, where I knew exactly what to expect. But each time I considered it, I reminded myself of the reasons I had left that life behind. I wasn't just chasing success anymore. I was chasing something deeper, something that had been dormant in me for years. It was as if the act of losing everything had stripped away the layers of pretense and had allowed me to see the world and myself for what it truly was. And so I kept pushing forward, inch by inch. I learned to embrace failure as a necessary part of the journey. Every setback taught me something new. Every mistake was an opportunity for growth. And I began to realize that failure was not the enemy. It was a teacher. I learned not to fear it, but to welcome it with open arms. As my business started to gain momentum, I began to see the fruits of my labor. The connections I was building felt more genuine. The work felt more rewarding, and I found a deep satisfaction in knowing that the challenges I faced had been essential to my growth. I no longer defined success by external validation or by what others thought of me. My worth wasn't tied to my job title or my bank balance. It was tied to the impact I was making and the authenticity with which I approached life. With each new step, I grew more confident. I learned to trust myself again. The person I had become was someone I respected, someone who could weather any storm, no matter how fierce. The journey wasn't easy, but it was mine, and it was beautiful in its own right. I also realized that my story wasn't unique. So many people I encountered had similar experiences. People who had hit rock bottom and had been forced to rebuild their lives from the ground up. It reminded me that we are all capable of immense resilience. We all have the strength within us to bounce back, to reinvent ourselves, and to find meaning even when everything feels lost. As I reflected on everything that had brought me to this point, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the hardships I had endured. I could have easily stayed in the comfortable, predictable life I had once lived. But it wasn't until I lost everything that I found my true purpose. And now that I've found it, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I often think back to that moment when I was first laid off, standing in the cold silence of my empty office. That day marked the beginning of my rebirth. Though I couldn't have known it at the time, it felt like the end. But it was actually the start of a new chapter, a chapter where I could live on my own terms. The life I'm living now isn't perfect. There are still days of uncertainty, of struggle, and of fear. But I'm no longer afraid of those things. I've learned that the toughest battles are often the ones that lead to the greatest rewards. And it's during those tough times that you discover your true strength. If there's one thing I've learned on this journey, it's that we are all capable of reinventing ourselves, no matter where we start. Sometimes life will force you into change. Other times it will be up to you to make the decision. But either way, change is inevitable. Embrace it. Welcome it. Trust that even when everything feels like it's falling apart, there is always something new waiting to be built. I can't promise that the road will be easy, but I can promise that it will be worth it. Life has a way of guiding us toward our true purpose, even if the path is rocky and uncertain. The key is to keep moving forward, to stay grounded in your values, and to trust that the struggles will lead you to something greater. If you're facing a tough time, or if you're feeling lost, know that it's okay. You don't have to have all the answers right now. Keep pushing forward, even when the road seems unclear. You might just find that losing everything is the best thing that ever happened to you. You might just find your true purpose on the other side. And if this story resonated with you, if it inspired you to keep moving forward despite the obstacles, please hit the like button. Subscribe to The Modern Stoic for more insights, more stories of growth, and more life lessons that can help you navigate the challenges you face. Stay grounded, stay true to yourself, and remember, your purpose is waiting for you. Keep going.